Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Like always, before we begin, I want to thank all of my anchor sponsors. It's been an awesome year with my sponsorship. Been able to upgrade my equipment and, sound a little bit better. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank Camilo, Jake, Edward Velasquez. I want to thank Eddie Lopez from Roots Creative, Ms. Norma Galindo. I also want to thank Sergio Tacos and Hotdogs with 8 years of experience serving the Imperial, San Diego, and Yuma counties with Mexicali style hot dogs and taquizas. Contact Sergio at 760-562-0057 or look for Sergio's Tacos and Hot Dogs on Facebook. Finally, I want to thank Eric Reyes from Los Amigos de la Comunidad, who are empowering the communities together. So shout out to Eric and Los Amigos de la Comunidad. Today we have a returning guest. Last time we spoke was episode, it was like almost 50 episodes back. We were in the middle of the beginning of this lockdown. It was crazy during that time, and we had a lot to talk about back then. And you want to come back and kind of share, do a little review of 2021. So my guest today is Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us back. It was really fun being on the air with you the first time, and I knew that we would have an opportunity again to come back, and the timing couldn't be better. We're a few days away from closing up 2021 with a lot of hopes and aspirations that 2022 be a better year for everyone, including the folks that we represent here in Imperial.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a little list of things you kind of wanted to talk about, do like a little review of 2021. So let's jump off with something that I know Eric Reyes would be kind of happy to listen and for us to talk about is the redistricting of the maps and all the good stuff of redistricting comes about.
Every 10 years, by constitutional requirement, we are obligated to do the census, and as a result of the census, and this is why it's so important when we're out there telling people, hágase contar, make sure that, you let people know that you're here and how many other folks, because it matters when it comes to the distribution of resources and the way representation ultimately is formatted. So this year, an independent commission that was established by the state legislature was set up to do the redistricting. And redistricting happens at the local level for school districts, for cities, if they have district voting, for counties, public utilities like IID. So everybody does this at the state level. This commission is responsible for the reconfiguring of boundaries for the state assembly, which is where I currently serve, the state senate, who currently serves in Imperial Valley is Senator Hueso, and then the congressional district, who is our Congressman Juan Vargas. And every 10 years, this commission, is responsible for utilizing certain criterias that need to ensure that the Voting Rights Act, it's a law, federal law, that requires certain type of demographics, socioeconomics be considered when you're configuring these districts. It's important that you try to keep communities of interest together that are alike, right? To make sure that those interests are protected when those who are serving those areas put forward their agendas. And then there's a handful of other, requirements that this commission has to consider when they're putting together these districts. These districts, at least for the state and the federal representative districts, have been submitted to the Secretary of State. And in some areas, there are some drastic changes. In some areas, there are some minor changes. For example, in the Assembly District that I currently represent, there were some minor changes where in the Coachella Valley, certain communities that were part of the district will no longer be the district. Cathedral City, Desert Hot Springs were taken out. But communities further north, east in the San Bernardino County, like Needles, were included. Other communities that were also incorporated were communities in the, I guess we could call it northwest, higher mountain type areas, in the areas of like Hammett and San Jacinto outside of those areas. Anza were included in the Assembly District. In the Senate, you have San Diego included in with the Imperial County going up to the Coachella Valley. That's a new addition, although not a new idea. In the past, the Senate District encompassed areas like Chula Vista, all of Imperial County, and went into certain communities of the Coachella Valley, and that's what the makeup of the district will look like starting in 2022. The congressional district has taken quite a bit of a change. You know, historically, Imperial County has been with San Diego, a good portion of the border region of San Diego that would encompass all the way down to the border of Imperial County, all the way to the Winter Haven area. And that would make up the actual congressional district. This year, the San Diego area was taken out. It's all of Imperial County, and it goes into the Coachella Valley. In fact, the district looks like the Assembly District that I currently represent, which is why, you know, we are seriously considering, you know, the possibilities of making that move. And making that move, I don't take it lightly. I think that it's a big decision. I think the people of Imperial County want to have a representative that's active, that's visible, and that gets things done. And we've gotten a lot of support since my announcing of my interests. But we're yet to make that decision. And hopefully, if we do, we continue to receive the support of the people of Imperial County, who we've been proudly serving for the last 7-8 years.
Do you think that it was a good move for, you know, the Imperial Valley and San Diego to part ways?
So there's I guess a difference of opinions, right? If you're looking at it from a personal perspective, you know, you're like, hey, this is a great opportunity for someone from Imperial County, or for that matter, Coachella Valley, to make a run at it, right? Have representation from an area that has much more in common. Mm-hmm. The Eastern Riverside County and Imperial County, agricultural-based economies, large Latina population, very low income, status, family households, the issues as it relates to the economy, the environment, education, a lot of very similar issues. So putting those communities together seems to make a lot of sense. Having a representative when the district was in San Diego after this next year, people have mixed feelings about that. What becomes more important, the big city or the smaller communities like Imperial County. But look, I think this is an opportunity for all of us to regroup and think about the type of representation that we want to have in Washington, D.C. And, I'm excited. If we could do the same type of work that we've done in the state legislature in Washington, D.C., then I think a lot of good things could come for our region and including Imperial County.
Yeah, for sure. Any big changes in the Coachella or Imperial Valley, in terms of redistricting?
Yeah, the only changes would be this congressional. The other changes, I believe, that we are looking at closely are in the Coachella Valley, where there's potentially a new Senate, seat that opens up. There's a new Assembly seat that opens up, currently held by Republicans. That could change and get in the hands of two Democratic elected representatives. Other than that, I think the most drastic change was taking our congressional district from the Coachella Valley, your congressional district here, San Diego, Imperial County, and mixing those up and making this new district. That seems to be the most drastic and the one that people are paying close attention to.
So when is like the deadline for you to kind of announce?
The announcement needs to be soon. A lot of things to think about, everything from what's in the best interest of the people that we serve. Could we do an effective job out there versus what we're doing at the state? I have to keep in mind, family as well. I have a 7-year-old little girl, I have an 18-year-old son and a daughter that, although they're 18 and they think they're older than that, that dad still needs to be around, right? And being in Washington, D.C. certainly detaches us. Being in Sacramento is a 1-hour flight away. Being in D.C. is like a 6-7 hour flight away. And really the question goes back to, where can I be most effective? Where can I actually get things done? The issues that pertain to Imperial County, a lot of them are federal. The issue of the Salton Sea, 50% of the Salton Sea is under the responsibility of the federal government. issues on the border related to infrastructure, the new river. Those are binational issues that require federal intervention. Mindful that over the course of the last few years, the state has actually played a big role in intervening in these issues. We're going to start construction on a project in the next few months to do some work on the new river, something that people are still very skeptical about. I'm excited to begin to see that construction because I think that's the moment where everyone's going to be like, finally, we've been hearing about this. We've heard about how much money's been secured, how many new laws have been changed, but we've never seen any movement. And I think, in a few months when that happens, we're all going to be relieved of the political pressures and the skepticism that's existed. But again, a federal government issue that the state has played a role in. And I'm happy that our office, and the teams on the ground, the communities, organizations, nonprofit organizations, everything from Comunidad del Valle and Eric Reyes and many others have been involved in this fight for many, many years. And my predecessor, Victor Manuel Perez, was the assembly member who laid foundation to some of the work that we get to do today to get some action going. So, those are the things that I'm thinking about. There isn't a necessary deadline. There is a deadline in March to file. That's certainly not what I'm waiting for. Just got some thinking to do. We got a couple of days to just chill as we wrap up the new year and start thinking about what we really want to do. Where do we want to be, in the next 2-3 years? And is it Washington, D.C., or is it, continuing to work in the California State Legislature? Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, because you mentioned, the time being taken away from you because it is a big leap, going to, like you said, Sacramento all the way to Washington and spending a lot of time over there. Yeah, it's a huge decision when it comes to family and like you said, like making sure you're at the place where you're the most effective. So,
that's what I think. That's what it boils down to, right? It's like, can I do more there than what we're doing now? And what will be effective? And will that be to the benefit of the people that we're representing? And those are the things that I need to sort out with our team, with those who have kind of advised us over the course of my, 2 decades in public service. And the jump is a natural one in terms of the next progression, right? Mm-hmm. It's like going from supervisor to manager, right? And if you're working at Macy's, right? Yeah. Now you went from the supervisor for a couple of years, now you're the manager. And so I see it as it's a natural progression going from the state legislature to Congress. And, we've got some conversations to have with a lot of folks, including our political friends and allies in the district.
Yeah, for sure. You talked about the new river and, Salton Sea. Do you have any, you talk about, we're getting ready to start construction. Can you give us any, a little bit more detailed updates in terms of those two projects?
Absolutely. Look, we've been collaborating with the city of Calexico, who's taking the lead. I want to acknowledge the work of Miguel Figueroa, probably someone that you should, interview sooner rather than later.
He's kind of a quiet guy. He doesn't like the limelight.
He's a quiet guy, but he's working behind the scenes. Getting things done.
For sure.
He is the most familiar with the new river than anyone else, I would say, as it relates to where the progress is. Him, Jose Angel is someone who's working for the state, who used to work for the water board. He's leading the project as a construction project manager. We got an update a couple of days ago that we're in the permitting process now. We're getting permits to actually start moving dirt. The concept of the project, it's a close to $30 million project that's going to do something similar that's been talked about and was done in Mexicali. They basically covered the new river. They took the water that's flowing through there to a treatment plant. They're going to clean it to a certain level, and they're going to, put it back out. And we're going to build a green, urban greening kind of forest park in the area where the new river currently runs through. And so that area is going to look transformed. And that project is several months away from starting. I mean, my predecessor worked on that in his 6 years in the legislature. This became one of the first things that we jumped on when we got elected. In fact, one of our first public press conference announcements was at the New River in terms of finding a responsible entity at the state level to take the lead on this. Soon after, securing some money. Soon after that, moving the needle to securing the money to beginning the construction documents. And now we're months away. As it relates to the Salton Sea, I'm very happy to report that there is a $220 million project under construction, and you can see it, you can feel it, you can look at the project and see all of the movement happening. It's on the southwest end of the sea. Access to that construction would be off of Highway 86 and Poe Drive. Once you pass Westmoreland, to the right on Poe, and there's an amazing amount of work happening out there that the community needs to be aware of. It's the first of many projects. Over the time in the legislature, we've secured over $600 million that's sitting there waiting for projects to get off the ground. Recently, IID in the state announced another 1,700 acres, in addition to the 4,000 that are under construction, of habitat restoration. And what does that mean? Well, we're covering up the dried up areas with habitat and other ways to mitigate the air quality problems that are occurring as a result of the sea drying up. Now, we know we already have air quality problems. We know we already have respiratory public health problems in the region. We need to mitigate those by building these projects, and that's what's happening out there. And that's exciting because that happened, I think, sometime in the early first quarter of this last year. Finally getting to see some action out there is a breath of fresh air for a lot of people, including myself, who tirelessly works in Sacramento, securing money, passing laws to make sure that we can start seeing some progress here.
What are some of the skepticisms you've heard from, people in the community or just people in general?
So they're all skepticisms that have merit. You know what I mean? It's like people have the right to be skeptical about nothing's happening at the New River. Why? Because for decades, nothing has happened. Mm-hmm. You've had a lot of people come through and go with announcements, progress, headlines on a press release, and efforts that with quotes, I'm fighting for fixing this problem, and no outcomes, right? And so people have every right to be skeptical about that. At the Salton Sea, the same thing. Even with this $220 million project under construction, people still, because they can't see the project. I mean, I just described the geographic location. It's on 86 and Poe. If you ask the regular folk, where the hell is 86 and Poe? Quien sabe, right? I don't know where Poe is, right? The only reason why the name sticks to my head is because I think of Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah. Right. And I drive through there all the time, right? In and out of the district. We have family in Westmoreland. And so, and of course, to my interest, we want to see the project under construction, and we'll drive through there on our little troquita every now and then and check out some of the progress. But we were there a few weeks ago with the Secretary of Natural Resources, community organizations, and other partners who got to see for the first time this project. There's a really cool article in the Ivy Press and the Desert Sun who covered the story. And it was one of those kind of a glimpse of hope, a glimpse of, oh, damn, something might be starting. But again, the skepticism, no one can see it. Mm-hmm. It's not near the population. It's not near where you can just drive by and be like, oh, mira, ya están haciendo trabajo ahí, finally. And because of that, right, we've had conversations with Natural Resources Agency, IID, the county, that the next set of projects need to be in places where people can see them, feel them, and also feel the direct benefit from them. Yeah. So the next projects are in the Desert Shores, West Shores communities, which are part of Imperial County, Ryan Calley's district. And then there's another project in Riverside County by North Shore that is called the Pilot Project, North Lake Pilot Project, being spearheaded by the Salton Sea Authority, which is an agency that has 2 members of Imperial County, Riverside County, 2 members of IID, 2 members of the Water District over there. And then it has representatives of the Torres Martinez tribe that are also within the boundaries of the Salton Sea. So skepticism, rightfully so. I think it's a well-deserved, skepticism. My dad was from Mexicali, and excuse the words, but he would say "puro pedo." There's nothing happening out there, and that's what people's response is. There ain't nothing going on out there, right? And it's like, no, there is something happening. And more than anyone, we want to make sure that people know, given our hard work in collaboration with our Senator Ben Wesso on these projects.
How was this area picked? or who picked the area where?
So the area was picked because it's kind of, they call it the mouth of the Salton Sea, where you have the New River and the other river, flowing in, right? So there is a projected amount of water that's coming in, and the way that they're building these projects, they look at it as the infrastructure to being able to bring in additional water if available, to begin filling in the dried up areas on the edges, right? So it's called the Species Habitat Conservation Project, but it's looked at as like the infrastructure project, the foundation to begin to build around it. So it was picked by the Natural Resources Agency. It was picked by a series of stakeholder meetings that took place over the course of 2 years. Where could the money that was available make the biggest bang for the buck? And that's what the project is about.
Yeah, and a lot of times we don't think about infrastructure. Like, especially like I work in technology. I work at a high school, and for a long time, the director that was there before, he would spend a lot of money on infrastructure when it came to like the bandwidth and everything for our schools. And it was like millions and millions of dollars, and people were like, why is he spending all this money on it? But now we're using, a lot of Wi-Fi, a lot of broadband in our schools, we're able to handle all this traffic. So, and it's really important to think about infrastructure, even though it's in the back end of, we don't see it, like you said.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got to build a strong foundation in order to build a house, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the stuff we don't see. It's on the ground, it's in the walls, right? And ultimately, that creates the strength in what you actually fill in the rest of your project with. Speaking of broadband, that's an area that we've been working on significantly. And, close to $7 billion are going to be spent in the state of California, prioritizing unserved communities of the state. I will tell you that Imperial County actually has a model when it comes to broadband connectivity that has been led by, Todd Fennell, the superintendent of public schools for the county. And, it's hard to make a case when we're in Sacramento that we need more money. And of course, we'll always need more money. But in Imperial County, we have a network of connectivity that's second to none. And I believe contracts with the state to be able to provide service out here. We clearly see the opportunity for improvements because one thing is connecting, the other is having actually fast internet speed, right? To be able to deliver. And that's the next phase of the work. But in the meanwhile, the prioritization is connecting places that have zero internet. And that's where the $7 billion will go. And there's some additional money coming from the federal government to expand that work. There's a committee called the Middle Mile Committee at the state level to put in that infrastructure, working closely with the internet service providers. That is something that when we got to the legislature, we knew needed to happen in order to also steer up economic and business opportunities in regions that lack it because of the lack of infrastructure. Internet today is just as viable and necessary as infrastructure for power, water, sewer, and this pandemic definitely put that on display in terms of how important having connectivity is in our communities. Yeah,
and you mentioned Todd Fennell, and I also want to shout out Luis Wong, who were they worked on this project for a long time called Borderlink for this in Imperial Valley.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Borderlink was able to give free internet access to a lot of homes in the Imperial Valley that didn't have internet access. They have a lot of antennas in the Imperial Valley that allow students to connect to Wi-Fi, and even if the antennas don't work, they think they have like buses that would drive out to areas where it was a dead zone and make sure that kids were able to connect. When we were in the virtual school learning stuff. Shout out to Todd Fennell. And I speak about the person that worked, Mr. Robert Simon. He used to work at the district where I work now. But Todd Fennell was also, like, I don't know who mentored who, but they talked a lot, and they know how important infrastructure is, and that's how we got to where we are with Borderlink.
Those guys know what they're talking about. They're very well respected and regarded at the state level. We have had Todd come in and do platicas on panels as it relates to giving testimony on what's happening in Imperial County. to be served as a model, to serve as a model. But we also know that what we want to do is increase speed capacities, right? In order to be able to meet the demands and the needs of everyone, whether it be school, business, hospitals, public safety agencies. That's critical. We authored the Internet for All bill that was actually originally a bill that was done by Alex Padilla, our United States Senator, first Latino to serve in that capacity. He authored the bill to make sure that there was communication consistency through our public safety agencies in the case of an emergency, an earthquake, some type of, hazardous, circumstance like a fire in Northern California. And with the pandemic, we learned how critical, again, this service is to just, our schools, our small businesses, in order to be able to stay open, to sell goods and products. So, no, that was another good thing that happened this year. And happy to hear that you're involved in that arena. And again, those two individuals, Todd and the other gentleman you mentioned, are pioneers for the region on this issue.
Yeah, for sure. You talked about historic budget allocations that the state of California got. You talked about broadband, but there's also money for education and housing. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Last year on this time, we were excited to announce, the city of Imperial got somewhere in the range of a $13 or $15 million grant. Several months before that, the city of Calexico had received a couple $1 million to rehab some facilities to create housing for those who needed it, like immediately. I think the hotel was renovated, and there was another additional, grant to build some affordable housing. There was also the city of Brawley who received like $12, $13 million. So last year on this time, we were really high on the money that came to the district on affordable housing. Some of those projects are yet to begin. We know that they take a little while. The financing always takes the longest. And then eventually it's engineering, pulling permits, and let's get to construction. And I know that some of them are getting close to that phase. But securing the money was a great success last year. This year, education, because of the surplus at the state level, got to see a good chunk of money, man. One of the things that we've been big on is early childhood education and after school programs. That area got to see quite a bit of money to expand the seats. We got to create more seats. We also got to train a workforce. If we're going to create more seats in the early childhood education, we got to train more early childhood education teachers. So that was actually coupled with that. And I know the IBC has an amazing program to train some of our early childhood providers, to be ready to take on these students. 579 million or so was the ballpark figure that went into those areas. And our job is to make sure that our school districts are good to go to receive some of that money. We're in a good position as it relates to our school districts because of our socioeconomics and demographics that we get a good chunk of that money. Yeah. We are in a position to get a good chunk of that money for early childhood education, special ed programs, as well as the after school programs. There was an additional $2 million to enhance after school programs. One thing that I didn't mention, but it's important to do so, is the career tech. That is such a critical area as well that we need to beef up. That they saw about $150 million of additional money coming that way to build up, career pathways for students that are not going to go pursue four-year university degrees. And I know that there's a lot of good stuff in the Calexico Unified School District as it relates to career tech. Shout out to Ms. Norma Galindo, who also, spearheads some of those career tech programs there at the high school. And so we're just excited to see some of that money make its way this way. As it relates to housing, there's a huge housing and affordability crisis in the state of California. It's just expensive, right? Yeah. To buy a house, live in the state, that's something to be said. And we got to do a better job from that aspect. But housing money, affordable housing, $10 billion. And there was somewhere in the range of $12 billion to address the homelessness issue. I do want to recognize that during this pandemic, a number of cities, including the Imperial Valley College under the leadership of former President Dr. Garcia, she was able to secure some money to build some affordable homelessness housing, projects for the students at the college in collaboration with the city of El Centro. We mentioned earlier some of the money that came to cities like Imperial, Calexico, and Brawley. So those are areas that, when working together with our local government agencies and leaders like Miguel and other city managers and mayors, when they get the idea and it aligns with some of the things that are happening at the state, it's just a matter of putting our best foot forward and aggressively going after that money. And the last few years, we build a good teamwork, collaboration with a lot of these entities, and we've seen some of that money make its way to the district, including money for parks.
Yeah.
Including money for parks.
Going back to education, there's nationally there's a shortage of teachers. A lot of, especially here, in Imperial Valley, there's a lot of tension between school districts and the unions. How does the state, how can the state ease these tensions and make sure the teachers are feeling well compensated and having the right supplies and trainings and all these things? How does the state, kind of like get involved in these?
So with these budget surpluses, right? There is a state law, Prop 98, that obligates us to spend a large portion of that money into education, right? The school districts have some flexibility with some of those dollars, not all. A good portion of them are already earmarked. I like to refer to it as it's colored money, meaning red money is for red, blue money is for blue. And what I mean by those colors, it's certain types of, obligations that they have, right? To teach certain curriculums, to spend certain amount of monies in specific, departments within the school districts. But some of that money also has some discretion to be utilized to increase, classroom morale and teacher, professional development, and provide those types of services and hopefully help with easing some of the tensions of the economic constraints that occur with school districts. The tension of, benefits going up, healthcare benefits going up, teachers wanting to, get a better salary so that they're not having to train in one district and go work in another. I mean, that's all real issues that we face with, our job at the state level is to try to create public policy that eases those tensions, that gives teachers the tools and the resources that they need. But a lot of the discretion falls on the local school district to determine how best they utilize their resources.
Okay. Going back to parks and there's a huge chunk of money that was also allocated to parks and stuff. But I mean, it's kind of hard for people here in the valley to enjoy these parks when it's either really hot, the air quality is really bad, and it's kind of cold. How do we, especially something that we can kind of work on is the air quality. How do we take advantage of those park money and then at the same time be able to use them? Yeah,
look, exciting to see in Calexico in a couple of months, there will be a construction of I believe, Heber Park. That was an $8.5 million grant that the state awarded the state of Calexico. We worked very closely with the management team there and the prior mayor. We're excited to see that park break ground. The elements of the park are critical to the environment that you want to create at a park. It isn't just so much, hey, we want the playground and baseball fields. You want to, have a park that's green, that's got trees, to capture carbon and clean the air. You want to have a place that's safe. And these grants require the city and the residents to come together and come up with those ideas. A large portion of the points that you're able to score on these park grants has to do with community outreach and engagement. How many meetings you're having with community to actually design the elements of the park. And what we're seeing is people want to see parks with trees and shade and walkways and exercise equipment and making sure that if we do have, equipment where playgrounds are available for children, that we're also incorporating elements for developmentally disabled children. What a beautiful thing to see a child in a wheelchair being able to take advantage of a park, equipment to be able to jump on a swing, the merry-go-round, and those exist. And we want to make sure that we're being inclusive when we're designing and building our parks. But you're absolutely right. If it's too hot, we can't use the park. If it's too cold, we can't use the park. If we've got a homelessness issue, people are afraid to use the park. But how we design these parks are critical to trying to minimize and mitigate those issues. I think right now there's a big, movement to incorporate, low water usage type parks. If you don't need the green grass, then you don't, but also incorporating in hot parts of the state, water features, water fountains, splash pads, and for that matter, even incorporating pools in communities like ours and in the Central Valley. That's really, really hot. Those are the types of projects with community input that are scoring well and getting funded. Imperial County this year will see close to $15 million of parks. Calipatria, City of El Centro, and Heber. I'll start with Heber, $1.5 million to do Corral Park in Heber, construct some renovations. Shout out to Tony Sandoval there, who is super active in the community of Heber and is really close to the office in terms of collaborating. And they did a good job, and they've done a good job in getting park dollars from the state. The City of El Centro is going to be investing $5.7 million in Gomez Park on the east side of El Centro, which is a much needed renovation for the people that live in that area. The demographics there are brown and black, members of our community who sometimes from speaking to them feel left out in that side of town. And I'm glad to see that this investment is being made. And I want to make sure that the mayor and the prior mayor, follow through with their commitments of making sure that we can deliver on these park promises. City of Calipatria applied for the grant last year, didn't get it. We connected with them and the grant readers of the state, like weeks after the denial of their application last year. And I like to say they gave us the answers to the test. They basically told us this is where the grant scored well. This is where you could have done better. And this is what you need to do to, put the best foot forward next year. And as a result of that and their community outreach and efforts, boom, City of Calipatria is getting $7 million to build a beautiful park in their community. All communities that are well-deserved. And for me, the issue of parks is exciting because when I was mayor in the city of Coachella, that was kind of one of the cornerstones of my agenda. I grew up in the city. I played baseball, soccer, football in those parks. I grew up, went to college. I came back. The community had doubled in population, and we had the same amount of park acreage. And those parks, because we had the same little parks with double the amount of people, they were just shut out. The infrastructure of those parks were no good. The grass was dead all the time. The restrooms were horrible. And they weren't restrooms that I would let my 7-year-old little girl, utilize. I mean, the public restrooms, it's hard to keep those maintained, but it was just not a place that you wanted to bring your family to. And we spend a lot of time and energy renovating those parks, thanks to the collaboration of our colleagues on the city council. Then we built a master plan for parks. And Coachella was also awarded a nice $8.5 million grant in this cycle of park monies, totaling close to $45 million coming to the assembly district that we represent, something that I'm very, very proud of.
Talking about the housing element, California is in a housing crisis. The governor recently said that took away that law where you couldn't build small living spaces in your yard or whatever. I can't remember what the law was exactly, which I should because I'm in the planning commission, but I forget. But we're in a housing crisis. I know that there's money for that as well. How much money is Imperial Valley, Coachella Valley getting, and how is it going to be spent?
So the majority of that money was related to the $10.3 billion of affordable housing, $12 billion of homelessness money that is available in a competitive manner through the Department of Housing and Community Development. Our region typically gets a stab at some of the farm worker housing. That program was funded at $9 million. It's called the Joe Cerna Farm Worker Housing Program. We're always eligible to get some money there to kind of close the gap for projects. I think you're referring to laws that were signed in to law that will allow, depending on the community that you live in, depending on the lot size, and it gave the local cities some discretion to build little ADUs, right?
Yeah.
Dwelling units in the back, as long as you're not creating a situation where you've got no parking, where you're clustering too many people together, where you're creating an emergency hazard, for people getting in and out of a neighborhood. But the idea there was to create opportunities for stimulating additional housing in the neighborhoods. We know that in the house, sometimes in communities in our district, because of the incomes, because of the economics, of affordability, you got 2 or 3 families living in one house, right? Whether it be a new house, an old house, a small or large house. If you have a lot that's big enough, this idea was to, if you can muster up some money to build a little unit in the back because you got the room, you're creating both some relief and an opportunity maybe for home ownership, or at least the step into getting on a pathway to home ownership. You rent first and then launch your way after you establish your good credit to move into home ownership, which is really what we should be striving for, right? Everyone being on a path to home ownership, developing some equity, because that's critical, right? Owning your piece of property, owning your land, your home is the best equity that you could probably have, right? So that money is competitive, and as I said earlier, the same way that we work with our cities to get money for the parks, get money for other types of initiatives, we just got to collaborate, put our best foot forward, and utilize our contacts at the state agencies to get the answers to the test, meaning tell us what do we need to do to fill out these applications and be competitive. What are other cities doing? What are they not doing? And that way we can, go out there and bring home that money.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I know that here in Calexico, we're, slowly like looking for areas to build more homes or apartments. I know in the west side of town, there's plans to build some low income apartments and some condos, and then on the east side, there's a plan to build houses with smaller lots. I don't know if you've seen the ones in Imperial that have, the lot itself a little bit bigger. The house is normal, a little bit on the small size, but the lot is smaller than normal. So we're looking for ways to get more homes in here in Calexico.
Yeah, we are used to a certain type of a home with a 10,000 square foot lot, 7,000 square foot lot, 1,700 square foot home, right? But that may not work for everybody. So it's important to diversify your housing stock, and it's okay. Affordable housing, low income housing is not a bad word. It's where many of our family members started. It's where my mom and dad started before they were able to build up their credit, save up some money, and buy their home in 1981 in the city of Coachella, a Lewis home, a product that was built on Avenue 51 and the old Harrison 86 now says on Travis Street. People need to recognize that we need to build a different stock of housing for all of our needs. There's housing that needs to be smaller, again, for rental purposes, for home ownership. And it's good to see that the city of Calexico and other cities in Imperial County are looking through that lens, diversifying their housing stock to be able to meet the needs of all folks in the region, So we're a big fan of that. When I spent my time in the city council in Coachella, the planning aspect of the community became something that I became very interested in. How do you build communities and amenities around them to also lower the need for people to drive to and from the market? That, if you plan a community right, there should be a market accessible, walking distance. There should be a park, more or less walking distance. In an ideal situation, there should be a park that's, walking distance in a safe, responsible way, so that we have less vehicles on the road, less emissions, less pollution to the air, less public health problems with respiratory disease problems. But that's kind of cool that you are on the planning commission. You get to work on some of that stuff. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, it's really, really fun. I'm learning a lot and kind of seeing if I want to take that dive into city council.
Right on.
But yeah, it's really interesting. A lot of the things that go on and how meetings are conducted is a huge part of that. Even not to criticize anybody, but to see some of the local city council meetings, I think that a lot of people who are in council should take a little time and kind of learn how a meeting is conducted.
Yeah. I'll tell you that when I first started on city council, I was 26 years old, and I used to spend time watching myself, my colleagues on TV, on public access channel, 3 days after the meeting took place. The meeting was on Wednesday. They would play it on Friday. And I would watch myself. I would watch others to see if, one, we were, speaking well, if we were saying the right things, if we were, and watching what reaction on other folks. In other words, I was studying. I was being a student of what was going on up there, and it served me well. And remember, my wife would say, "Why are you watching that? You were there. You know what happened." And it was a different purpose. I was there studying to see what how we are projecting ourselves. Coming across. Are we getting our message across clearly? Do we make no sense? Do we need to go back and no longer utilize that word in the wrong context? I was being a student, right? You're always learning, and I think your advice on that front could be well taken by everybody.
Yeah, and especially now that we have way more access to like meetings, and like you would have to wait to watch it on public access. We can watch it on Facebook, YouTube. There's a lot of ways to watch them and learn and see yourself. The mistakes you're doing and kind of correct yourself when it comes to like the way you're conducting the meeting. But yeah, it's funny because I never thought I would be somebody that would be interested in politics or city council. But now that I see it and kind of like just to make my city look better, sometimes I feel like, I think I should take that dive into it. What was you gonna say?
I was just going to say that that's what it takes, man. It really takes an interest in something that you see that's not right, that can be done better. And then all of a sudden you ask yourself the question, well, can I do it better? Can I do more? And then if the answer is yeah, then it's when you take the leap of faith and you say, then I'm going to give it a shot. Because if you don't, the worst thing that will happen will be that you'll always wonder and think about what could have and should have, right?
Yeah.
And just know that if you do make the leap, that there's a possibility that you may not get picked. But those are the consequences of putting your name on the ballot. And if you do, then, you've got some work to do, right? And what better to then serve the community that you're born and raised in and contribute to the progress of the city? Because, I know that there's a lot of chatter about what happens in Imperial Valley, at the counties, at the cities. Every city has its unique challenge. Every city has its unique positive, but it really requires, people coming together, finding some common ground, compromising, and moving an agenda forward, man, and doing it in a responsible, respectable way where you're not, looking like silly, payasos on TV or on Facebook. And I mean no disrespect to anyone. I'm just saying that that's part of, paying attention to what's happening in your community, and I'm glad that you're certainly thinking about that.
Yeah, for sure. Another big project that's going on here in the Imperial Valley, it's the lithium plant that they're planning on building on Salton Sea. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the impacts in the community?
Yeah, look, we are excited that this opportunity has come up. There's a lot of community participation through the Lithium Valley Commission. There are local community representatives that have been appointed to the commission, the committee. We established the committee with the intention of making sure that the locals have a seat at the table and a say at the table, a vote in terms of making recommendations on if this happens, how it happens, and who should it benefit, right? And you've got some good people on that commission doing some great work that will ultimately come up with a report and make sure that if this moves forward, it's done in an environmentally responsible way. It looks like that work is progressing. You've got a lot of interest in this issue, given that there are goals to transition our fossil fuel vehicles to electric vehicles. There is a lot of ambition to build additional energy capacity, and you need to store it somewhere. And lithium is the mineral, is the source that allows for large battery storage for energy. Is what you need. You also have a lot of car manufacturers that are moving in the direction in 20 years from now and 15 years from now, wanting to go all electric, and they're signing up with some of these geothermal developers in the Salton Sea to secure the lithium source that they need for their future, right? For the GM, Ford, a bunch of other companies are kind of speculating. GM has made a commitment with one of the developers out there. There's one company, Energy Source, that has already been approved by the county to start the actual recovery of lithium and producing it. There's some announcements coming up in the first quarter of this coming year about other partners that are coming to the table. And look, I think what's most important about this is that, yes, we'll be creating jobs. Yes, there'll be revenues generated by the county because of increase of property values, building multi-million and billion-dollar, facilities in the Salton Sea area. We need roads that lead to those places. We're going to need housing to house those workers. We're going to need a direct impact or benefit going back into the Salton Sea restoration too, right? And maintenance of some of the improvements that are being made. And the commission is set up to have those conversations and make those recommendations to the state legislature. And in the case that at the local level, these decisions are being made, that we adopt state policy to make sure that the local community becomes shareholders in the economic benefits of all of this happening. I was at the climate conference in Glasgow, Scotland, about a month ago, and this was a conversation that the Indian delegation had with us about Salton Sea lithium, the delegation from Germany, the delegation from Scotland, England. There were groups of folks that wanted to talk about the lithium conversation happening in Southern California, and to have a legislator that directly represents that area was of much interest and benefit to them, because it is the largest lithium deposit that is said to be found on the continent. Today, we depend on lithium for all of the things that we know you need it for, everything from your watch to your phone to your computer to cars and energy storage. We depend on China, Australia, Chile, and a couple of other countries that where they are doing this, it isn't a recovery process. It is a mining process that does have adversarial effects on the environment. You also have, labor standards that are inferior to the ones that exist in the United States and in California, environmental standards that are inferior, right, to ours. And so we believe that we can do it better, we can do it cleaner, we can do it safer, and a much more responsible way in California. And when I say California, I mean Imperial County. So it certainly could be a game changer, as people use that word very loosely. This truly could be a transformational game changer for Imperial County, and the people of Imperial County, the county, the community stakeholders are participants in the decision making through the Lithium Valley Commission that was established by a piece of legislation that we authored.
Yeah, because some of the biggest questions when it comes to this is, like you mentioned, jobs, creation of jobs, making sure that most of the fabrication and all the things involved in the recovery of the lithium stays here. And number two, is the environmental, is there going to be any environmental damage or anything, involved with the lithium recovery? We already have a big issue with the Salton Sea, and then people are wondering if are we going to be adding in another problem by doing this. But do you know if...
All fair questions, some that could be answered directly, some that are still in the process of being determined. We've recommended to the Lithium Valley Commission to engage the local air quality district to talk about the last 20 years of geothermal development out there. What have been the impacts to air quality? What have been the impacts to water quality? So reaching out to the regional water board to take a look at track records. Have we had any adversarial effects on the water, contamination? Reach out to the public health department. Can the public health department tell us in the time frame of these years that we've been building geothermal plants, have we seen adversarial impacts on the public health and well-being of the people that live around there, the people that have worked there? So we're able to answer these questions by rolling up our sleeves and actually asking the questions to the right people. And I'm hopeful that the Lithium Valley Commission that's been empowered to do this pursues those. Those are recommendations that have been made to be able to put together a comprehensive report that tells us this is going to happen, but this is how we're going to mitigate it. Or this isn't going to happen because we were able to determine that by X, Y, and Z factor. Talking about jobs is always important, but we can't lose sight that that's like the only thing. We need to make sure that there's public health, guardrails, that we're ultimately seeing economic benefit stay in the community and directly impact, the people that have been impacted by, the Salton Sea air quality, pollution, Salton Sea, just lack of economic activity out there, right? You Bombay Beach, Desert Shores communities that are all in Imperial County, they have to be beneficiaries. Calipatria, Nyland, the communities that are first in line as you're coming into Imperial County, closest to Salton Sea, all have to be, stakeholders there that see a direct benefit from all this.
Yeah, I believe Eric Reyes is part of the Lithium committee.
Yeah, so Eric Reyes is definitely involved in the Lithium Valley Commission. He is not a member of the commission, but members of his collaboration are Luis Olmedo, a couple other folks who sit there, have a seat at the table, and not just a seat, but a voice and a vote on how this all plays out.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Eric and Luis Olmedo can, if you need any information or have questions, you can probably reach out to them and they'll definitely help you out. We're almost at an hour. I know Aurora told me to keep it around there. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Anything looking forward that, Californians, Imperial Valleyans, Coachella Valleyans can look forward to in 2022?
Well, look, I mean, for us, it's this agenda that we've put forward in our time in the legislature that we want to continue to build on. I'm excited to, continue my work in the legislature if that's the final decision. We've got a blueprint, we've got a roadmap, we've got some great relationships in Sacramento, and we've got some good relationships in our community here in Imperial County for purposes of collaborating and again, going after that money and pushing the laws that we need to be changed in order to allow us to go get the monies that we need to get things done. The other thing is this, I mean, a lot of changes as it relates to leadership in the cities of Imperial County. Every year they have a new mayor. We're excited to work with those folks who have just stepped in to carry out some of these projects like the Calipatria Central, park projects, going after some of the housing money that's available in this year's budget. Securing some of that money for the broadband infrastructure stuff, right? To increase speeds and accessibility out here. That's going to be critical. But for me, the biggest thing will be just working hard, continuing to earn the respect and the vote of the people of Imperial County. Very proud to serve this area. I'm not shy of saying it. My parents are from Mexicali. The family is all spread out in Imperial Valley. Spent a lot of hot summers and cold winters in this area, and I have a love and passion for this community. I maybe was not born and raised here, but I can tell you that I've worked twice as hard to earn the respect and the support of the people of this community. And I just hope that they'll stay with us as we decide either to stay in the California legislature or make the move to Washington, D.C. But whichever one we make, I promise that we'll continue to work hard and deliver for the people of this county.
Yeah, for sure. And for those of you listening to this, you mentioned Mexicali. Assembly member is wearing Águilas de Mexicali cap, so you can see where his roots are from. But yeah, well, I want to thank you again for giving me this time. You guys reached out to me, and it was really an honor to give you this time and platform to share with our community the things that are going on in Imperial Valley and Southern California. Like I said, there's that big change was that I was becoming or moving away from the San Diego area, but yeah, I really want to thank you, Aurora, for reaching out and giving me this time to talk to you and share.
We'll do it again. It was important for us to circle back with you as we said we would. And, we'll try to do this on a regular basis to give you some updates on what's happening, say hello, and see how your political endeavors and journey is coming along, man. So congratulations to you for your public service on the Planning Commission. And thank you for doing this. This is a great platform for everybody in the community to talk about what's happening, good, bad, or indifferent. A space, right? A space to have an exchange of ideas, debate, deliberation, and come to a conclusion on what are potential solutions. I think we all care about, the same things. And there's always room for us to continue to work together. So, saludos a todos. Pasen un feliz año nuevo y nos vemos muy pronto.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you again. And thank you guys for listening. This is probably going to be the last episode of 2021. It was a crazy year, but hopefully 2022 isn't as crazy as this one. But yeah, make sure you guys stay safe. We're still going through a pandemic, and we need to take care of each other because we don't want to go back to the beginning of this pandemic. But yeah, I want to wish you guys a happy 2022, and we'll see you guys in the next one.